Let's get it. Let me go ahead and introduce the crew. We got JD in the building.
As always, you already know it's 8-1 Trey all day.
We got your boy Q in the building.
What's good, everybody?
All right, let's go get it cracking with the pod quote of the day.
All right, pod quote of the day, man. And I'm gonna go ahead and do a little shout out to a video that was sent to me by Q of the crew not long ago, man. It was a little funny. By none other than Terrence Bud Crawford, who was on IG Live. And it was a very simple quote. And we know that it was definitely a subliminal shot at somebody who you will definitely know who is at. But he's on the beach and he's kicking his feet in the waves. You know, the water, just enjoying, you know, some relaxation. Definitely far away from Omaha, Nebraska. He looked like he wasn't nowhere near Omaha, Nebraska. You know, long way from Omaha, Nebraska.
They ain't got no beaches, do they?
Yeah. Not them guys. Ain't got nothing over there. And he simply was saying, I'm gonna just say a short snippet of the quote. And he simply said, "What's a fish to a goat?" And that is the pod quote of the day.
Food.
Fish to
Nothing.
a goat. Yep. Food. And that is the pod quote of the day.
Anything in the way. A can, dirt, go eat any damn thing. Straight up.
Hey, so I got one more favor of you to ask of you, JD. Could you go ahead and tell the people what to do?
And y'all already down? If you already know, my bad, I messed it up, man.
Come
if you're
on,
down with
brother.
the vibes,
come on, man.
Bell and subscribe. I messed it up, man, because I was about to give a shout out to all the people who subscribing lately, man. Shout out to all of y'all, man. We growing pretty good, man.
Subscribe, try to get,
YouTube for sure, man. Thanks.
We small, but we strong and we growing. I like that. I appreciate y'all for checking us out. I mean, you know, some of y'all hating on there, leaving little comments there.
Smash the damn like button.
Yeah, just hit the like button. But we appreciate even if
I'm talking to y'all too.
We appreciate y'all letting us know how you feel. You know what I'm saying? Iron sharpens iron. With that being said, let's go ahead and get to it. Devin Haney remained undefeated against Jojo Diaz. Now, one could say this was a pillow fight, but you can't discredit somebody's power. I mean, Jojo Diaz is not known for his power. Neither is Devin Haney, but they put on a high intensity, highly kinetic back and forth bout where, you know, you could arguably say both fighters got hurt. It could be indicative of their chin more than their power, but it was definitely a high level boxing match between two really, really talented fighters. And once again, Devin Haney, the dream, came out on top. So what more can you say? Go ahead, fellas. I'll kick it off to Q and see how you feel about it. You know, reactions, thoughts. Let's hear it.
Well, it was an amazing fight, man. Honestly, what I came out of that fight saying, you know, and I expected this fight I expected Haney to win by UD, which he did, but it was a lot closer than I anticipated. And one thing about Haney that I've noticed, man, and you know, it changed my opinion on something I said last week. I feel like he could outbox, and he still could possibly outbox a lot of people in the division, a lot of the top guys. But I don't know, because one thing about Haney, the first 3 rounds, and it's crazy because it played out just how the game plan I think was supposed to be for Diaz, far as his trainer or something, saying that he was going the first 3 rounds feel him out, and then he was going to go in there. You know, it basically upsets his power to see. You know what I'm saying? You know, fill him out for, you know, the filler rounds, and then just like clockwork, the 4th round, he had to close the gap and went. And that's my thing about Devin Haney. He's so vulnerable in the phone booth. You know, he's so vulnerable. He dropped the guard. He get hit with all type of punches, and it was just like, I don't really even know what he could do different, because I mean, it wasn't the same punch. You know, he was getting hit with hooks. He was getting hit with straights. You know, left straights. He was get hit to the body, and I just feel like he's gonna have to just be able to control the distance better. You know what I'm saying, with his footwork. But the thing about it is, even the jab, the best thing he did do, he jabbed to the body so amazingly. He hooked to the body, jabbed to the body. He went to the body very well. But I feel like my man had I think he had the high guard. He had the high guard, you know, that was basically taking that jab away. I was looking for him to throw the hook around and hit around the guard, but you know, he was eventually, he split the guard. He started splitting the guard sometimes, but he not, you know, I just feel like the power, any top fighter he fight that has power, they get him inside the pocket, man. He's vulnerable to get hit. And I just feel like if Jojo Diaz had enough power, I don't feel like Haney would have won that fight. I'm gonna just be honest with you, because I feel like Diaz landed the more effective punches, like the clean. I feel like his punches affected Haney more so than Haney punches affected him. From what I saw,
he landed the more thudding shots. But it was an amazing fight, and Haney had, he was up on the scorecards. I think maybe the first 3 rounds definitely he had in the books. But he won the fight, and that's pretty much what I got, man. I'm just it made me just, I don't know. I'm scared. I'm scared for Haney, man. Just like we talked about plenty of times about his power. I just feel like he has good defense and good movement, but I just feel like his lack of power is a liability to his defense, because somebody's going to, and even Diaz said, I take 1 or 2 of them to get in there and get, you know what I'm saying? That's the way Diaz fought, yeah.
And that's what anybody's going to do. They going to, they feel like they can take his power. They're going to get in there and, so Haney got to do a better job on the inside. He got to do a better job, man. It won't hurt to elbow him. I mean, you could get 1 foul.
As I was watching the fight, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, man. I got a different. My views on Haney sort of shifted after watching this fight. I was one of those people who, similar to kind of what Q just mentioned, where I really didn't like the lack of power that I saw from Devin Haney. But as I was watching the fight, I fell back and I kind of started to really realize that at this point, Haney is who he is. And I think he's a fighter that I'm no longer going to worry about his power, because I think even Haney knows that he doesn't have exceptional power. I think him and his whole team at this particular moment know that that'll never really be an asset to his game, is having that 1-punch knockout power. Now, what I do give Haney credit for is I give him a lot of credit in fighting against a southpaw that at least early on, he showed some pretty good boxing skill for someone fighting a decent southpaw like Jojo Diaz. A lot of people don't understand that it's definitely pretty difficult, if you're not used to it, handling a solid southpaw when you're an orthodox fighter. And a lot of people didn't really see the footsies, that I call it footsies, that they were playing early on in the fight, where when an orthodox and a southpaw fighter, you're both trying to establish your front foot. And I will give Devin Haney credit where he did a great job early on. Now, again, to your point, Q, late, Devin Haney really does start to wane when the conditioning and late in the fight, things start to wear on. You don't see the same things you see early, but I will say at least early on in the fight, he did an excellent job of establishing his front foot and kind of outboxing Jojo Diaz in enough spurts that put him up on the cards. Now, I will say right now at this point, I'm not really stressed over Haney's lack of power, but only if he stays at 135 pounds. So long as he stays at 135, I'm not overly worried about the power. I think he might be in some tough fights. I think we might even see Devin Haney get shook. But I think we all could still see him, maybe be in the mix against some fighters where maybe they might rock him, but maybe not put Haney all the way out of there. Now, where I would become worried is if he ever gets to a point where he grows bigger and steps into the 140-pound division.
He's a big lightweight.
Right. So if he ever goes to 140 or higher, then I would have a little bit of concern about Devin Haney. But at this point, man, I think it was an excellent fight by both fighters. I think he did enough to outbox Jojo Diaz. And at this point, man, I'm going to salute Devin Haney and his team. Shout out to him for putting on a decent performance. I'm not overly really going to worry about the power anymore as of now, so long as he stays at 135. Even if he gets in there, he fights a Lomachenko or any of those other fighters, I think they probably don't have enough to get him out of there. As of right now, y'all tell me if there's another 135-pound, especially with T.O. moving up to 140, if there's somebody else with really that kind of thudding power that might rock him out of there. But I personally think that he will be okay. Just my opinion. I think he'll be okay outside of Tank Davis. I personally think everybody in the landscape of 135, Devin could at least get through 12 rounds with them without being knocked out.
And that's a good point you made about because when you think about it, he was rocked by the punch by my man George, who's Jorge Linares. But Jorge Linares did drop Lomachenko.
Right.
Mm-hmm. He dropped Lomachenko, which even Teofimo, which is supposed to be the harder, he didn't drop him.
But now I will say though too. Now I will say with the Jorge Linares, I know we talked about that how he didn't step on the gas. He had Haney rocked. Yeah, Haney for some inexplicable reason.
Yeah, I still to
who day, knows.
I go with the conspiracy theory that Jorge Linares bet had a side bet that the fight was going to go to distance. I'm sorry. It's inexplicable why he didn't jump on him. I mean, it could be conditioning. I could be just imagining things, but I ask anybody to go back and watch after he got him hurt. Linares' inactivity and explain that somehow in a way that makes sense in boxing. I'll disagree with JD on one thing. If we've seen anything with Kambosos and T.O., just because we don't know the guy doesn't mean they're not out there. But I will say some of them are out there. If you look at a Richard Comey, he got power, right? And he's a long guy that can catch Devin Haney on the way out. Look at a guy like Nakatani, who's very durable. Lost by accumulation of punches and pinpoint punches by Lomachenko. And if you look at a guy like Jojo Diaz, who doesn't have a lot of power, that did buzz, and he admits so, Devin Haney, you think about the angles that a Lomachenko could show, and it's the punches that you don't see coming, right? And the way Lomachenko poured it on against Tio, I could imagine with Devin Haney fading the way he has shown the last two fights against competition when he stepped it up. I think the biggest thing that worries me is you can have a suspect chin and have a lot of power. You can have a little bit of power, but you got to be like Timothy Bradley and have a great chin. He has neither. So to your point, Q, about the phone booth or on in the inside, if he can fight a guy that has decent power, because Jojo Diaz had a less than 50% knockout rate. Let's he's not knocking people out like that. But if you get a guy whose game, I don't know if he's making it out of 135 unscathed if he doesn't make some changes. You can't get more power overnight. You can't get a better chin overnight. So I'm not saying that. I'm just meaning the way he would pull out and then get touched, or when it gets later in fights, his ability to just stay in the pocket and still operate without getting touched, it decreases to an extent where he's getting touched and he's getting hurt. So 135, I think he'll be okay at 135. But then again, I don't think I will see him fighting a Nakatani, a Comey, guys who may not be at his skill level, because I think the two, as far as skill level, that are guys that are left in lightweight, I think Devin Haney and Lomachenko are the two most skilled guys. Mm-hmm. And definitely. I think that's a 50.
Loma ain't about to rock him like that.
Yeah, but see, then you got to worry about with Loma, and that's why I say it's the angle, it's the punches you don't see coming. Where we know Loma's not that type of puncher, but he can have that type of angle. And late in a fight, if Jojo Diaz, who considerably has less power than Lomachenko, just because if you look at the knockout ratio, you may look at it and you may not think it. Of course, the first 7-8 rounds, we're not expecting a flash knockdown from Lomachenko or a knockout. But once he starts to pour it on, like you see with Tio, and like you said, JD, he fades towards the back end of a fight. I could see him being put down by Lomachenko, and then the onslaught comes on, and they got to call it. So I tend to agree with you more so than I disagree with Haney being able to survive 135 without too much, but they're going to have to keep guiding his career, much like a lot of the lightweights are getting their career guided. And I'll go ahead and let you respond.
Yeah, no. All I would say is that I do think I just think that him and his team at a certain point, they're going to embrace the reality. I think at first, I think they were kind of in denial about that reality of his power. We all remember when he literally face to face, wasn't he asking Jorge Linares,
how's my
power?
Man, I got a bone to pick with Jorge. How you gonna lie to that man and go behind his back and tell the truth?
Hey, I almost want to say my man did the same. Well, I saw him at a press conference saying that he had power, that he had enough power. And to Haney's credit, his eye was almost closed, which I'm like, okay, well. But the thing is, he did say he had decent power, and like I say, he might have stunned him or something. But then I read somewhere that he said he ain't had no power. So I don't know, man. You know how it goes. Whatever.
Yeah. And I think ultimately his team is embracing that reality. So I do think that what we're going to see from a Devin Haney over his career, even though he's only, 23 years of age, still plenty of time to keep honing certain boxing skills. He's going to be one of those fighters where with his ability that he has, it's all going to boil down to how great of a boxer, a true boxer he becomes. I don't think any of us expect him to knock people out like that. I think a lot of us feel like he can't be touched. So I think I'm one of those fans. I'm coming to a point where I'm like, you know what? This young kid, he is what he is when it comes to the power. And so I know at a certain point, people will always talk about the power, but at a certain point, he's just got to embrace what he is, and he's got to become the best boxer possible. And to his credit, like you said, Q, I love the body work that he did. If you're at least not going to be a thudding KO artist and really be able to rock people with one-hitter quitters, you got to at least be a fighter who's willing to invest in the body. And I do think that there were critical moments in that fight where his investment in the body of Jojo Diaz, it took enough out of Jojo that Jojo just didn't have that extra reserve to catch Devin simply because of the body work. So if he does that, I mean, we'll see what plays out. But I agree with you. I mean, I don't think he has power, but I'm just at a point where, I mean, Devin is what he is. Let's see what shakes it with him as a boxer.
Man, I almost wish I almost want him and Ryan Garcia to fight, man. Even though I want him to go see if he get the unified, if that fight presents itself in Australia, wherever that might be. I
wanted to see all of them fight, but now that's not. We ain't gonna get that. So I got one last question. I need y'all to make this quick. So, do you all trust Devin Haney? Unified belts and all. You know what? Let's fast forward. Okay, it's springtime. Down under. Kambosos Haney. We've had a good 9 rounds. Do you trust Devin Haney, his chin, his punching ability, his boxing ability late, in a close fight with George Kambosos and it turns into a dogfight? Because at that point, it's 50-50. Nobody knows who's winning. And George Kambosos' corner tells him, hey, we might be down. Jump on him. Haney can't go anywhere. We all know that Kambosos has good footwork.
And a chin.
Do you trust Devin Haney in that situation to really think he could survive and be the guy at the lightweight division? Just, you guys can elaborate, but really just a yes or no question. But you guys.
Hell no, I don't trust him. I don't trust him right now. I'm gonna be honest, man. I love Devin Haney. Y'all remember that was my first pick. First pick of the draft. I wanted Devin Haney. Thought he'd be the guy. I don't trust him right now. You gotta earn that. You gotta earn that back.
I ain't gonna lie, man. If you force me to the front of the Caesar's Palace sports book, and I got to put money on it, I ain't gonna lie. I wouldn't trust it either. I wouldn't trust it.
Not because of skill, man. I can see
all of that. Like you said, J. Bob, I actually could see him up on the cards. But when it gets down to those championship rounds, and we know what kind of chin Kambosos has, ooh, it might get dicey, man. I ain't gonna lie. I wouldn't quite trust it right now.
So speaking of that, I'm going to transition to a fighter that you would probably trust.